Hello, everyone. Bazamalita, we're embarking on an absolutely awe-inspiring journey through the cradle of firsts. You know, if you look at the map of human history, very few places are as densely packed with innovation, culture, and just sheer architectural ambition as Anatolia. We're not just looking at old stones today. We're literally looking at the blueprints of modern civilization itself. I mean, everything from how we heat our homes to how we trade our goods has roots buried deep in this remarkable peninsula. I am so thrilled to be your guide through this incredible museum of human ingenuity.
To trace this epic 9,000-year history, we're going to follow a structured path. We'll start with the ancient firsts of Anatolia, move right into classical trade and innovations, explore sanctuaries and sacred sites, marvel at medieval engineering and art, and finally, look up at some Ottoman architectural masterpieces.
Okay, let's dive into this with Part 1, Ancient Firsts of Anatolia, the Dawn of Civilization.
The sheer timeline we're dealing with here is staggering. We're kicking things off with the Çatalhöyük map fresco. This is actually the oldest known map in the world, and it depicts the settlement's layout right alongside the eruption of the Hasan Dağ volcano. It's a completely mind-bending snapshot of prehistoric life. Then, fast forward to 1950 BC, and Anatolia meets the written word. At Kiltepe, Assyrian trade colonies left behind these cuneiform tablets, marking the region's official introduction to writing. And the artistry didn't stop there. In the Bronze Age Hatti period, the royal tombs of Çatalhöyük yielded these incredible sun discs and magnificent statues of bulls and deer. Finally, we've got the Phrygian capital of Gordion, which was just added to the UNESCO list in 2023, by the way. It's famous not just for the legendary Gordian knot, but for housing the unbelievable wooden tomb chamber of King Midas himself.
So, this brings us to the Megaron. Now, it might look kind of simple at first glance, but you are looking at the ancient ancestor of our very own modern homes. Originating all the way back in the Troy I settlement, the Megaron is the earliest known rectangular house plan. It featured a front portico, essentially a front porch, and a hearth situated in the back. This specific spatial organization was highly practical and profoundly influential for domestic architecture for millennia to come. Literally the blueprint for how we organize our living spaces today.
All right, moving right along to Part 2, Classical Trade and Innovations, Commerce and Daily Life. Let's see how these early societies built the foundations of our modern economy. And this brilliantly illustrates just how advanced classical economic systems were. Look no further than the Macasellum in the ancient city of Izanai, in modern-day Kütahya. It wasn't just a bustling market, it's recognized as the world's first official stock exchange building. So the concept of Wall Street, the highly organized, centralized trading of goods and tracking of inflation, essentially took its first monumental breaths right here in classical Anatolia.
But commerce went way beyond just stocks. It drove some brilliant regional innovations. Take the Hellenistic Attalid dynasty of Pergamon. They didn't just found modern-day Antalya. They actually invented parchment, forever changing how humanity recorded and shared knowledge. Meanwhile, over on the Aegean coast in Izmir's Urla district, the ancient city of Kilazamanai operated the oldest known olive oil workshop in antiquity. And up in Çanakkale, Parion thrived as this vital port city for both marching Roman legions and timeless lovers. Every single region became a unique hub of progress.
Let's shift gears a bit for Part 3, Sanctuaries and Sacred Sites, the Spiritual Layers.
I absolutely love the beautiful contrast we see here. Down in Mardin, we have the magnificent Deir el-Zafran Monastery, which served as the historical center of the Syriac Patriarchate. But the truly incredible part? Its foundation is literally the ground floor of an ancient pagan sun temple. Just think about that. The physical layering of these structures is such a perfect visual metaphor for Anatolia itself. New faiths and cultures embracing and building upward directly upon the sacred spaces of the old world.
Spiritual and funerary art also became incredibly diverse across the region. As you can see, Lycian rock tombs took on wildly different forms depending on where they were located. You've got monumental temple facades in Amantis, rock-carved replicas of domestic wooden houses in Myra, and the freestanding sarcophagi of Kaş. But religious expression certainly wasn't limited to tombs. Up in Istanbul, the 5th century St. John's Studios stands today as the oldest surviving Byzantine religious structure. And this fascinating blending of spirituality is gorgeously captured in Gaziantep, where a bronze statue of Mars from Zugma holds a spear in one hand, but surprisingly, a delicate flower in the other.
Up next is Part 4, Medieval Engineering and Art, Master Builders.
With a new era came entirely new master builders. In 1326, Bursa became the first official capital of the Ottoman Empire, and this new Islamic society began organizing its social duties directly into its architecture. It's fascinating. On one hand, you had the Imaret, a public soup kitchen dedicated to feeding the poor and supporting students. But right alongside it in the complex was the Daruz-i-Ziyafeh, an elite dining hall reserved strictly for high-level VIP guests. This side-by-side comparison shows exactly how civic duty and social hierarchy were literally built right into the foundations of medieval cities.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how their aesthetic innovations were just as advanced as their civic ones. The luster technique brought this dazzling, metallic shine to ceramic tiles, catching the light in completely spectacular ways. Meanwhile, the Seljuks mastered the Minai technique. This was a highly complex method utilizing an incredible 7 colors, combining both overglaze and underglaze applications to create these incredibly detailed and vibrant artworks that, honestly, still captivate us today.
We absolutely must highlight the structural marvels of the era too. Just look at the stunning wooden hypostyle mosques that were recently added to the UNESCO World Heritage List in 2023. Scattered across cities like Konya, Afyon, and Ankara, these wooden masterpieces are a true testament to medieval architectural genius. And speaking of structural genius, we can't forget the Archikid-built Mullabadi Bridge, which holds the phenomenal record of being the widest arched stone bridge in the world.
Which brings us to our final chapter, Part 5. Ottoman Architectural Masterpieces. Monumental Feats.
You really cannot discuss this era without talking about Mimar Sinan, the legendary chief Ottoman architect. His career progression is actually self-described in 3 distinct phases, which is super cool. First, his apprentice work is represented by the Shahzadeh Mosque in Istanbul. Next, his journeyman masterpiece is the iconic Süleymaniye Mosque, completely dominating the Istanbul skyline. And finally, he reached the absolute pinnacle of his craft, his masterwork, the breathtaking Selimiye Mosque, located in Edirne. It's just an incredible visual journey of a genius refining his craft over a lifetime of monumental projects.
But, architecture is never static. It evolves with its global influences. There was a fascinating stylistic pivot toward Western aesthetics in later centuries. The Nur Osmaniye Mosque in Istanbul stands as a major turning point. It's the very first imperial mosque to be built in the westernizing Baroque style in Ottoman architecture. Later on, right on the shores of the Bosphorus, the architect Nikogos Balyan gifted us the Ortaköy Mosque. It's a glittering, highly decorated masterpiece of neo-Baroque design that just perfectly bridges the East and the West in stone.
Now imagine, for a moment, the world's first wall-heated water system. When we think of central heating, we usually think of modern 20th century conveniences, right? But out in the eastern province of Ogri, at the magnificent Isak Pasha Palace, architects successfully implemented the world's first known central heating system using hot water channels built directly into the walls. The sheer luxury and engineering foresight required to pull this off in a distant Anatolian palace is absolutely staggering.
Which leaves us with this final, thrilling thought. We've seen how the foundations of trade, spirituality, urban planning, and even modern home heating were born from these ancient Anatolian stones. Literally every layer of dirt scraped away by archaeologists rewrites our understanding of human capability. So knowing how much of our present was shaped right here, I want to leave you with this. What future firsts are still waiting to be unearthed beneath our feet? Keep exploring, keep learning, and thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through history today. See you on the next Explainer.